Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lonely Stunner podcast, and this episode we're going to be talking about Sergey Kovalev's last ever fight. So the other day he fought on Friday. I'm recording this on Saturday. This might come out in a few days' time, but Sergey Kovalev just had his last fight. He's a former unified heavyweight world champion. You know, Sergey Kovalev's a fighter with tremendous pedigree, a really impressive record, beat a lot of top contenders at light heavyweight, lost to a few of them. I mean, only a handful of losses. He lost to Andre Ward twice and then lost to Canelo, and I think he's lost to some other guys here and there. But the last fight, it was a feel-good moment, I'll be honest. It was largely a happy ending for Sergey Kovalev. He was 42 coming into this fight, and a boxer who's, got respect from the entire boxing community. At 42 to still be able to go out there and, go as long as he went 7 rounds and stop the guy in 7 rounds, right? To be able to stop a guy in 7 rounds at the age of 42, he's showed that he's still got power, he's still got the high IQ, and I'm going to talk about my thoughts throughout this fight. And I think at the start of the fight, Kovalev established his jab early on. It was a strong jab, it was showed a lot of volume, and towards the end of the third round, his opponent, Artur Mann, would land some nice body shots to Kovalev, and the commentators, in my opinion, they were a bit harsh on him, because, to be honest, all these rounds, I think for the most part, maybe you could give a hand, 1 or 2 to Artur Mann, but Kovalev was outboxing him for the most part, right? And, coming out of the third round, my observation was Kovalev needs to keep using punches in bunches to keep Mann off of him. Because Mann he was trying to push the pace, he was trying to close the distance and walk Kovalev down. So when you're in a boxing match and you're boxing a guy like this, what you need to do is keep throwing punches and keep maintaining the distance, right? And coming to the end of the third and fourth round, it did feel like Kovalev was starting to feel the pace a bit more. But I say that, but it does feel like maybe I was getting gaslighted by the commentators, right? Because Kovalev was winning these rounds, and you can be like, he's feeling the pace. He's winning rounds, bro. He's winning these rounds, and even then, by the end of the fourth, it did feel like Kovalev was starting to slow down a bit. But again, like I'm saying, he's winning these rounds, and we got to the fifth round, so we were halfway into the fight, and in my opinion, Kovalev had won all the rounds. In my opinion. And like I said, the commentators were being a bit harsh on Kovalev, but despite them criticising Kovalev's cardio and his body conditioning, Kovalev had been outboxing his opponent, right? Kovalev starts every round very well with nice, crisp, smooth combos, and that was, you could sort of see that from, like, he would start these rounds strong, and then as the round would go on, he'd get tired, and, he would tire himself out a bit. But we got to the 7th round and Kovalev dropped him again with a monstrous hook, and it put Mann down, and that was it for him. Ref said no mass, or maybe the corner said, but yeah, Mann couldn't continue at that point. He'd taken a bit of a beating, had taken some nice, clean, crisp shots to the head, and then was finished off with that monstrous shot by Kovalev. But, a nice ending for a guy like Kovalev. We don't see enough happy endings in the sport of boxing. I hope he does call it a day there, because that's sort of his level. At this point, Kovalev, he should be, a multi-millionaire. He's had a number of big matches, and this match was in his hometown, so a great way to go out. But yeah, I do hope this is the end for Kovalev. Legend of the sport, like I said, unified light heavyweight champion, multiple-time world champion. And yeah, that's it for Sergey Kovalev. But yeah, another episode of the Seth Side Quest in the bag. And I am out. Peace.